do 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 do. Vegan prepper. Do 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 do. Vegan prepper. So aren't these just the biggest pumpkin seeds you've ever seen? Like, these are the ones that I just got from Azure. I've never seen them like this. They're huge. And so on the left is the pumpkin seed I'm more used to seeing. But on the right is the one that I just got from Azure. So that is not going to make for super cute, just like fall baking. So anyway, we do mostly use these in smoothies. But yeah, I just thought I'd point out the size difference and the color difference. Like, anyway, I've just never seen them like this. Have you seen them like this? If so, let me know. Definitely a convert to pre-soaking and dehydrating nuts and seeds before eating them. It just sort of changes the texture. It makes them a little bit more like a roasted nut. They're a little bit softer to eat, but also very crisp and crunchy after that process. I don't know if you heard that crunch, but it's fantastic. Apparently they also will end up having a longer shelf life, but I have no idea how much it does extend the shelf life. But yeah, I love doing that. So basically you pre-soak your nuts or seeds and then dehydrate them at a very low temperature, usually for at least a day or two, like the lowest temperature that your dehydrator will do. And then after that, you have yourself a lovely collection of pre-soaked seeds. So yeah, if you want to make nut or seed milks out of them, you do still need to re-soak them at least a little bit, but not nearly as long as you do if you're starting with just raw nuts and seeds. So anyway, it ends up being super handy. I'm getting ready to head to the grocery store. I have about $19 left in the grocery budget for the week because I spent some of it on a Halloween costume. I need to talk a little bit about some of what's been going on with us. And so it's been stacked school breaks and visits these last 4 weeks. I've had a kid home for the entire 4 weeks, rotating, revolving kids. I feel like my kids are like, you know, like the revolving door, like in front of a, I don't know, fancy hotel or something like in New York City. And it's like, I feel like one comes out and I take care of that kid and then they go back in and then the next kid comes out and then it's like just this little revolving door of kids. And so actually it was hilarious when I was telling Adam the timing of the breaks and my oldest son's visit. None of them were together. None of them were home at the same time. There was only one day of overlap where my oldest son, or my middle son, and my daughter were home at the same time. And other than that, nobody was home at the same time. It was kind of hilarious. And he laughed because he knew I was going to say the revolving door thing because that's what I say. But anyway, I love it. I love my kids. They're wonderful. But it took up a lot of time, right? And so that's a lot of why I haven't been here. But that wasn't the budget thing. The budget thing has to do a lot with kind of medical bills from my surgery. And then the fact that my car just blew up. It didn't literally blow up, but it is about as salvageable as if it had blown up. And so it's just been interesting over here. But do you know what really helps and gives peace of mind when all this kind of stuff is going on? Food storage. And so I can slash my budget crazy right now and funnel money where it needs to go without having to worry so much about food. Although I am still purchasing fresh things. I'll talk a little bit about budget stuff in just a bit, but yeah, I do really need to head to the store. But yeah, what a gift. What a gift to already have all this stuff set up. Reheating leftover soup from dinner. I made the lentil soup I make all the time in my Instant Pot, and so I'm just using the saute function to reheat the rest of it. But also, while I was out, Adam's carob chips arrived. I haven't posted the Azure video yet. There was a mistake. They sent me the wrong item, but now the correct item has arrived, and I am going to try to make him a batch of sugar, well, not sugar free, but no sugar added cookies. I'm really excited. So using these, since there's no sugar added to these, and they still taste really sweet and wonderful because carob has some natural sweetness. So I saw several recipes and they all basically boil down to something like a half cup of chocolate chips, a half cup of peanut butter, but we're going to be using sun butter. And obviously I'm using carob instead of chocolate, and then like 1.5 cups of rolled oats, something like that. And then you just melt everything together and mix it and then let it set in the fridge and you have cookies. And so hopefully that will work as a little treat for my husband. For anybody who was wondering, when we make stuff in the Instant Pot, a lot of times when we put it away after it cools, we just use like a standard stock pot. It happens to fit. This is the 8-quart Instant Pot. And it fits. And so once it cools, we just take the insert out and stick the whole thing in the fridge. And then the next day when I want to reheat it, if it happens to be kind of a liquidy thing like a soup or a curry or something like that, then I'll just put the insert right back in the Instant Pot to heat it up. And then I don't have to use any extra dishes whatsoever. So here is my lunch. Sage is going to have basically the same thing, but she has a really hearty snack right before she comes home from school. And so actually today, it's funny, their snack was a big vegetable soup today. So anyway, but she is not hungry. A lot of times she doesn't eat lunch until closer to 1:30 or 2 because of that snack that she gets. But I'm just having this in a big wide bowl so it cools faster because my son is off school early today and I need to go get him pretty soon. And I just have a few pieces, like small pieces of homemade sourdough. I got some beautiful blistering on this crust. It was so good. Like, it's one of the best ones I've ever had. It's delicious. It has some home ground flour in it, but not a ton. I've been experimenting a lot more with grinding flour and cooking, because I did get this book. I'm not sure if I already showed it to you guys or not, but anyway, I will be talking a little bit more about this in a little bit, but for now I'm going to eat my lunch and then I'm going to go get my son. All right, I'm starting on those cookies. They say double boiler, but I'm just having everything on an extremely low heat. And then once it is, you know, almost like, I don't know, I would say probably about 2/3 melted, I'll go ahead and turn the heat off. But this is just 1/2 cup of those unsweetened carob chips. All right, now the heat is off and I've added in the organic sun butter. It's just this kind that we get from Azure Standard. No added sugar. The only ingredient is just sunflower seeds. So yeah, that's the one that we get. All right, the sun butter is all mixed in. Now to grab the oats. Ah, that is an empty bucket, y'all. All right, give me a second. I just grabbed one of my refill bags from my shelf that I just organized. And so I'll go ahead and cut off the seal and get these in there. Hopefully those will fit in here. If not, we'll just have a little bit of an overflow situation and it'll be fine. If you have a bunch of the solids of your food kind of up really close to the top and you're worried about it, just start cutting. And as you open up air into the bag, all the stuff that was up here from being laid flat and, you know, getting the oxygen sucked out, you saw that it was very, the bag was very bumpy in the last clip, but you just get a tiny bit of air in. Once the air is in, the bag will start settling. Everything in the bag will settle down and you'll be able to pour more easily. You don't have to worry about it spilling out the top. So it's personal preference whether or not you just dump everything into your container with the oxygen absorbers or not. I tend to just pick out whichever ones I see, knowing that there may be some still in here. I guess we ran out of big ones, so we were using little ones when we were doing this. But I'll just pull those out and toss them in the garbage and then go ahead and refill my thing. But you don't necessarily have to, especially if, I don't know, say you accidentally open the other end or whatever. This doesn't hurt anything, but I just like to pick them out. It did not all fit, so not into the 5-gallon bucket or the 1-gallon container I have in my pantry. So what's left will just go back into the little refill section and we will pour from this, you know, once we've emptied a bit into the bucket. Okay, 1.5 cups of oats mixed in. Okay, there they are. Hopefully he likes them. I'm making some cannellini bean and potato soup tonight for dinner, so I'm going ahead and getting cannellini beans into my Instant Pot. One of my little pre-made jars that I do little pre-made pint-sized jars of dried beans, which I dump in the Instant Pot with 6 cups of water and then cook for the appropriate amount of time. And then that's how I make all of the beans I need for all the cooking I do. I don't have hardly any canned beans in the house. Pretty much the only canned bean that I buy is refried beans. It's typically about 40 minutes. Yes. Okay, it's typically about 40 minutes for cannellini beans, but I have mine set for 45 because the beans are a bit old, so I add a few minutes onto the end, and then that way they get cooked through just fine. I love making my beans in the Instant Pot. If you have beans that probably won't get soft on the stove, all you have to do with the Instant Pot is just add a few minutes, and that's one of the things I love about it. This is realized I accidentally, I also was showing what I do with my lunch and stuff. I'm not sponsored by Instant Pot. I wish, goodness, right? That would be awesome. But I just use I use my Instant Pots all the time. Pretty much every single day I'm using at least one of my Instant Pots at least one time. So actually today I'm using one of my Instant Pots twice because I am going to use my 8-quart Duo Instant Pot is going to be the thing I use to make my soy milk, which I started my soybeans earlier to make my soy milk. And so I find that I get the burn warning in my 6-quart, and I don't know what the difference is, but my 8-quart is an older model. It's a Duo, and I don't get the burn warning on that. So anyway, that's the one I'm going to use. So now I am putting this jar back. This jar had the cannellini beans that I'm using in tonight's dinner. So if you've ever wondered what all these empty little glass pints are kind of in between my buckets, that's what they are. They're the jars that I use with the beans. And so what I like to do is fill all of them. I believe there's 18 total jars. I fill them all and then I go through them all and I fill them with all the various different beans that I have. Then I tell myself, and that's all I'm doing, I'm not canning them, I just fill them, and it makes it so much easier to make beans really fast or whatever. Then I tell myself that I'm going to go through every single one of the individual jars that I have filled before I use a different type of bean. Now, obviously, occasionally there will be an exception, like if I just really have to make a certain recipe and I have to have a certain bean, say I need to use garbanzo beans because I have to make hummus for lasagna. I have a recipe on the channel, if that sounds weird. My lasagna recipe, I can link it down below. Everybody who's tried it really loves it. And you put hummus into tofu ricotta, and that's just part of the recipe, and it's amazing. But sometimes, for instance, like I said, I have to specifically use a specific bean, like garbanzo beans, to make hummus. And so obviously I will sometimes make an exception, but the idea is that by putting all the various beans that I own in the smaller jars, not only does it make it more convenient for me, it also is actually forcing me to really rotate through my beans, because certain ones I just don't use as much as the others. Like for instance, the cannellini beans. I mentioned that they were old, and they're old because I almost never use them. And so when I am out of the cannellini beans, I will likely not buy new ones. Or if I do, I'll only buy about 5 pounds at a time or something. I don't have to have a huge store of that on hand, just because I don't know, they're just not our favorite bean. So anyway, here is actually what I have left. Typically, this is the section in my kind of tiny pantry. By the way, this is not dirty. This is just old, like the paint has worn off. But anyway, this is where I typically will put a bunch of these jars of beans, and I currently only have 3 left. So black beans, white beans, and garbanzo beans. So yeah. Getting ready to go ahead and caramelize some onions for the soup that I'm making tonight. I'm going to be using a little bit of my homemade vegan butter in order to do that. I get the recipe out of the Homemade Vegan Pantry book. If you want to do vegan home cooking and you don't have this book yet, you need to run out and get it for yourself. I do have it linked below if you'd like to use my link, but if not, this is what the book is and you can just go find it yourself. So her butter recipe is just the absolute best in the world. It's just fantastic. It uses a combination of oils plus salt, some plant milk of your choice, and soy lecithin, but you can use sunflower lecithin instead, or lecithin. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. And you can use that and make yourself some butter that basically behaves exactly like butter. I will show you in the pan when I put it in there. It foams up, it behaves exactly like butter, it will brown like real butter, and then you're not just using like, I don't know, margarine, basically. You can make it yourself. I made it out of organic coconut oil, organic avocado oil, organic soy milk, the soy lecithin, and the salt. And so you can make it custom, leave out anything you don't want in there. You can make it soy-free if you want, make it nut-free except for the coconut. Yeah, anyway, let's go ahead and just show you how it behaves in the pan. I forgot to mention, this is my newest kitchen gadget. I just bought it so that for holiday baking, for making recipes of this butter, it makes about 2 cups. And so it's perfectly 4 sticks. And so this last time when I made it, I was able to use my molds for the first time. And so the mold is fantastic. I'll link this down below too. It marks out the tablespoons for you so that you have your measurements right there. And also, you know, this is 1 stick of butter. So there's a lot of times recipes obviously will call for a stick of butter, like a cookie recipe or a pastry recipe or whatever. And so, yeah, it's just really handy. So I love this thing. And yeah, I'll link it down below so that you can find it too if you're interested. There's about a 1/2 tablespoon going in. You can see it's behaving basically exactly like regular butter. Oh my gosh, the pan is so hot, it's already browning. So see, it browns. I'm gonna toss in my onions. Oh, it smells amazing though. that completely amazing brown butter smell. I love that smell. It does remind me of seafood a bit. Or like that smell is often, even though I don't like seafood, I love that smell. I mean, obviously I'm vegan, I don't eat it anymore, but even before I was vegan, seafood was not my thing. But yeah, it behaves pretty much exactly like butter. It's fantastic. It smells amazing, and it tastes amazing. It takes your vegan baked goods to the next level. Not to get too technical, but, oh, sorry, I'm crooked. Sorry. Not to get too technical, but I kind of can't help myself. If you know anything about me, you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know this about me by now. I cannot stop myself from getting super technical and sharing all the stuff with you. So actually, I'm going to take care of this and then I'll tell you what I wanted to say. I just added a little salt to help the onions begin releasing their own liquids, and it kind of enhances and helps the caramelization process. And so I'm just going to sort of let this sit here, and as needed, moving forward, I will be basically deglazing with water as necessary until they get as caramelized as I want them to be. All right, so for butter, regular butter, like from cow milk or cows or cream or whatever, it has milk fat, but also milk solids in it. That's why it browns. Like you saw the one that I was using in the pan just now, it browned because it has milk solids present in it. Now there are soy milk solids, but still it's the same kind of principle. So butter itself lends kind of an amazing effect and texture to baked goods because of the fact that it also has those milk solids present in it. And so when you make your own homemade vegan butter with milk solids, you know, your soy milk or cashew milk or almond milk, whatever you want to put in it, when those milk solids are present in the butter, it behaves so much more like regular butter, and you're going to have incredible results in your vegan baked goods. Buying the Miyoko's butter in the stores is extremely expensive, so I like to make my own, especially like I said, going into the holidays, holiday baking and all of that stuff. And so coconut milk, or not coconut milk, coconut oil and say palm shortening is not always the best substitute for butter in a lot of applications, specifically because of that missing milk fat solid. A lot of times it does okay, but anyway, that you can read up on it if you are interested in reading about these things. But that's kind of the short version of what makes butter different from just like shortening or coconut oil. And so yeah, I like to make my own, and that book is incredible. And you basically get Miyoko's butter recipe, and I think after you've made the recipe, I'm trying to do my math here, I think after you've made that butter recipe only twice and gotten yourself basically a total of 8 sticks of butter, you will have just paid for the book. Well, obviously you paid for your ingredients, so maybe when you make it 3 times, the book has been paid for just on the butter recipe alone. So anyway, I'm gonna go back to my onions. Okay, I'd say that these are looking pretty good as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on the rest of the soup. All right, this is still too hot to make the soy milk yet. These are leftover breadsticks from the other night I made out of that homeground flour book. So these are 100% homeground flour. It was all hard red wheat. They turned out really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and reheat these just briefly in the oven. Although I don't know who's going to eat them or not. We do also still have like some sourdough bread, like I said, if people want anything like that with their meal, but I'm just going to reheat these so that we can get through them and not waste them. But yeah, the last step of the soup, once it's off the boil, is to add miso in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the recipe for the soup in the description box below. But I'll put all that down there. But yeah, the last step is to add the miso. And so that's just sort of sitting here waiting. Unfortunately, the beans were not quite done. They were still hard. So I've put them back in for another few minutes, and hopefully everything will kind of be done at the same time. We just have a couple minutes left on the soup, and then once the beans are done, I can scoop some into there. My favorite tool to do that is just, I don't know what it's called. Is it like a fry thing, or just like a little scooping basket thing? I think people normally use it for frying, but I love it for scooping beans out of my Instant Pot. The one that I have in particular is exactly 2 cups. So when I scoop a full scoop of beans, I know that's 2 cups of beans, and that helps me estimate. Like if I'm estimating replacing cans of beans with my fresh cooked beans that I make myself, each can of bean typically has about 1.5 cups of beans. And so if I do kind of 1.5 scoops, like just eyeballing, then that's usually about 2 cans of beans. And that's usually about what I will put into a single batch of soup. But yeah, just hopefully the timing of everything ends up being okay. All right, here it is. It turned out really delicious. I'm gonna dig in. Right, here is the okara I have left. It's nice and flaky. I went ahead and strained everything. I didn't film it because it was gonna be too difficult. And I'm going to go ahead and pour it into this jar. Here's the finished soy milk. I'm very happy about it. I'm just gonna leave it plain. You can flavor it if you want to, but I just leave it plain, and then if I want it sweet or want to flavor it for some reason, I can do that afterwards. But plain, it's useful in, basically any way. And then This is the okara. I don't have any plans for this right now. There are many ways to use it and recipes and all kinds of stuff, but I am actually just going to go ahead and toss this into my compost. It's organic soybeans. And yeah, we have a busy next few days, and I just don't think I'm going to get to it on time. I know I could freeze it, but it'll just end up being some sort of forgotten brick in the back of my freezer. So I will definitely be making batches of soy milk when I decide to give some of those unfished sticks, probably from the Miyoko Shinner book, a try. But like I said, for now, it's just compost. So I'm very happy to have this. This will last, I think, for 3 to 5 days in the fridge, but we'll go through it really quickly, especially if I use it to make some chai, which is it is destined to become chai, at least some of it. If you're wondering about cleanup, there is definitely some stuff stuck to the bottom of the Instant Pot, but it comes off very easily just with a little scraper tool. And so, yeah, it's not too difficult at all. This is my favorite way to make soy milk because it feels like it takes the least amount of trouble. You don't have to watch the pot, none of the yubu forms, the skin on top, I don't know, the whole process seems so easy. And so it does also produce a really great milk. Here is the organic soy milk on the next day. So it's not separated at all. And I think that's got to be one of the reasons why soy milk is one of my favorite homemade plant milks, because you're not dealing with a lot of the stuff that you deal with in a homemade nut milk. So you saw it's the next day because of the soy milk in the fridge. It's the next day. I'm going to go ahead and finish out the video talking about a few of the things I said I was going to talk about. I will say, though, that soy milk has to be one of my favorite plant milks to make at home now that I know how to make it this way in the Instant Pot. I will link the original recipe down below that I'm using, although I have changed a couple of things for my own self, my own method, just to make it a little easier on myself. For instance, I don't use a strainer in my Instant Pot to catch the okara. I found that to be more of a mess, more annoying than just waiting a little while for the soy milk to cool down so that I could strain it. And then one of the other things I really love about the soy milk itself is that, for instance, today, if I wanted to, I could take the soy milk that I made yesterday, reheat it, and go ahead and make tofu out of it. Like, you can turn it into something else later, even sitting in your fridge. It doesn't have to stay just milk. I could now turn it into tofu if I wanted to. But I find that also that when I'm going to make tofu, personally, it feels like doing soy milk and then tofu on the same day is really a lot. And it's kind of annoying because they say, like, oh, you know, the best time to make the tofu is when the soy milk is fresh. Well, when the soy milk is fresh, you're burning yourself trying to strain it. I kind of have figured out how to do it with like a kitchen towel that I twist and then like press with a spatula against the side of a strainer, but it's just so much easier to just do it the next day. So also, you're kind of forced into starting the process for tofu, which is, I don't know if it's actually as labor intensive as it seems, or if it's only labor intensive when it gets attached to making the soy milk. And you're kind of forced to do it right away rather than being able to do it, you know, like live your life and choose when to do it yourself. So I like to make my soy milk and then make tofu a different day if I'm going to. In fact, today I'm making another batch of soy milk for the express purpose of probably making tofu either tomorrow or Saturday to have like tofu over the weekend. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with all that. But like I said, I will link that recipe down below. And so also to kind of talk about budgeting stuff. So with all the insanity going on in our lives and wanting to free up money, as much money as possible, we have to get really finicky about every penny that we spend. And so I track everything. I use Jordan Page's system. She is my absolute favorite for budgeting. Actually, a lot of family stuff. Go check her channel out. I'll link it down below. And I will link the videos where she talks specifically about her budgeting system. Her envelope budgeting system. It's so simple that she uses for groceries. And so I like the idea of the envelope budgeting system, but I don't jive with having like 50 envelopes. And she kind of comedically talks about that in the video. So you'll see, I won't ruin it for you. And so to really just focus your budget on like the most basic stuff, right? And so I have a tracker that I made a few years ago where we started really tracking our budget using a lot of her system, a lot of her stuff. I just put it together in Google Docs with formulas so that, like, you know, the paycheck goes here, the amount of bills that we need goes here, and then like everything gets subtracted from the paycheck based on where it is in the sheet. So you end up, once everything is subtracted, I believe it's bills, gas for me and Adam, groceries, or tithe, which is first, but yeah, tithe, bills, gas, groceries. I'm pretty sure all of that gets taken out of the original paycheck, and then whatever number is left at the base of that, whatever number is left, that ends up getting plugged into the miscellaneous budget. And so stuff like it just sort of does it automatically based on what we enter and what we do. And so if you're interested in seeing that tracker, I can try to figure out how to make a video of that and then give you access to it. And hopefully it would help you out. Because like I said, it's already got the formulas pre-programmed in there, and it's my favorite way to do it. Or I just get the system set up and then I no longer have to think about it. So once we decided we have to start getting really finicky again with like every penny that we're spending right now, we just pull out the old tracker and we start plugging it in, because it's like, we've done this before, so we can do it again. And so, yeah, it's been interesting, but I will link her video down below. I think the number one thing that she does that other people, I haven't heard them talk about yet, is budgeting per week. So she doesn't look at a monthly grocery budget so much. She looks at a weekly grocery budget. She takes it, she divides it. She allocates herself only a certain amount of money every week. And then that's how she keeps on track. And that was mind-blowing to me and really helpful to me personally, so that you can, because she was saying like, if you run out of money one week, usually, almost always, you can last a few days until your next week and then start, fresh. So obviously having food storage on hand does help. But when we first began storing food, we were doing it as a budget thing, not as a prepping thing. And so for me, it began many years ago. We had serious financial difficulty. I've talked about on the channel before, serious. And I had like no money whatsoever, but I saw like the very short version of it is I was at a Winco because I was specifically there because I knew you could buy things in bulk. So like I wanted to make, I can't remember what it was, if I was making chocolate chip cookies or something else. But anyway, you could get things in bulk so that I could literally go and purchase, like if I needed just a cup of chocolate chips, I could get 1 cup of chocolate chips. And then that way I could still, do treats for my family and do certain recipes, but I didn't have to spend any more money than I needed to spend for what I needed that week, if that makes sense. So I was going to bulk places so that I could buy as small an amount as possible, which is obviously the opposite of the way I do things now. But like, anyway, that was kind of where I started. But when I was there, I decided one day to go poke around in the giant bag section just to sort of see what was going on. Because I thought, I don't know, I'll just go look at it and see. And I saw a bag of rolled oats and it was $16 in some odd cents. It was basically $16, a 25-pound bag of oats. And I was staring at that thing like it was so much food. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now, granted, I know that a 25-pound bag of oats, even non-organic, is not that much today. It was also, they were not organic oats, in this memory that I'm sharing with you. But it started with that bag of oats. I put the oats in my cart and I pulled out, I can't remember, I'm pretty sure one of the things I pulled out was like a barbecue sauce. And like there was a few things that I pulled out because I was recognizing the buying power of buying in bulk. And so a lot of people say they don't have enough money to prep, but honestly, for me, based upon my experience, I feel like I don't have enough money to not prep. So that was kind of the beginning of us financially turning our lives around, was because of how much I was able to make from that one purchase. And it freed up so much money for other things, for then the next big bag of something that I got, and then the next big bag of something that I got, and then it was like one by one, it just starts snowballing, and then I end up with all this stuff. And so for me, I find it to be an extremely powerful thing to store food, and it's very helpful budget wise. I already have a lot of it on hand, but I want to make sure that I can keep doing it moving forward and replacing what needs replacing and all of that stuff. So anyway, yes, I do really find it helpful. Her budgeting stuff, I will link it down below. And then also the homeground flour book. So I do have a lot of grains stored on hand. I already have a grain mill. And so for me, it makes a lot of sense budgetarily to start working through a lot of these whole grains I have on hand. And now I've done it here and there, I'll make, half of my flour in a bread recipe from, my whole wheat berries instead of just the stuff that I purchased. I'm working through a lot of the stuff I have right now I am almost at the bottom though of my bucket of whole wheat pastry flour. And once I get through that, I will replace what's in that bucket. I'm not going to add more flour to it. I'm going to add soft white wheat berries to that bucket. So now my bread flour bucket has been replaced with hard red wheat. Soon my pastry flour bucket, my whole wheat pastry flour bucket will be replaced with soft white wheat. And we're just, you know, we're doing it now. Like I'm doing it. So I can talk a little bit more about that, but I'm just sort of working through this book a little bit, kind of one recipe at a time. There's health benefits to whole grains, which I guess I could start talking about too later. I don't want to talk too much right now. It's getting longer. Of course, if you're still here, you're still here. You'd probably still be here even if I kept talking, but I still want to try to respect your time as much as possible. So to give a quick overview, but like for instance, tonight I'm going to be making a red lentil curry with some rice, and I'm going to make the tortilla recipe out of this book. I don't think she has a recipe for like pita bread. Almost certainly doesn't have a recipe for naan. But honestly, a lot of what I'm doing right now is working through these recipes, and they're very oil heavy though. So I will try to start reducing a lot of that moving forward, but just sort of try to get really familiar with working with homeground flour because it is so different. It's like these skills. So I will try to utilize the skills that other people have already figured out, but it's like this is a lost art at this point, right? Like we're so used to commercial flours now in our lives that are sifted of a lot of their nutrition, and then because they were ground, you know, so long ago, also a lot of their nutrition degrades over time. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into that and learning all about that and sharing with you guys as I learn it. I don't know. I'm very excited about this. It's a lot of fun. So like I said, we're going to make tortillas tonight to go with the curry, even though it's not quite a match, but you know, it's like roti basically. Okay. We'll call it roti. It will be good. You know, I don't honestly know because even the tortillas in the book are not like traditional Mexican tortillas, you know, but yeah, we'll see. I'm actually in the middle of watching a video because it was like 20 minutes and my husband came home from work when I was in the middle of when I started watching that. I can link that one down below too. I've discovered Rajiv Surendra, I believe is his name. And so I've been watching some of his videos. He talks about some of his videos have traditional Tamil cooking. And so he was doing a video on how his auntie, I can't remember her name, I feel bad now, but his auntie makes roti and she makes the most wonderful roti. And so he has like a 27 minute, something like that, long video with a super detailed account of exactly how he makes the roti the way his auntie does. And so this is the kind of stuff that I love. I love all the little details. I love all of that. And so I'm going to learn how to make the roti, and I'm hoping as I'm getting more familiar with the homegrown flours, I will be able to figure out how to adapt more recipes, hopefully with far less oil and other stuff. I did put that little bit of butter in the base of my soup, but overall, we still don't use a lot of oil in our house. It's not like something that I do in all of our recipes. I've gotten a little lax when it comes to stuff like that because it feels like, you know, like one half to 1 tablespoon of butter and an entire giant pot of soup, and that's literally all that's in there. So it's like, I don't know, it feels a little better, especially when you're doing stuff like caramelizing onions. You can caramelize them with only water, but getting them started with a little bit of oil just sort of helps. Anyway, I've gotten a little bit lax on certain things, but I don't know. Life is too stressful to be like stressed about everything. So I'm allowing myself some grace in certain areas. Maybe I shouldn't, but anyway, yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because I know this has gotten really long. So for anybody who's still here, you're my hero, you know, like I just so appreciate you. And I thank you for sticking around to the end. Hopefully that video was helpful to you and you got some good tips and you learned something. And so that's always my goal, is to be helpful and to help people moving forward. It is very difficult for me. I realize these videos, really what I should do is focus and say, I'm going to do a video all about just making soy milk. And then I'm going to do a video all about just the vegan butter. And then I'm going to do a video all about just the homegrown flour. And honestly, I should. If I were more organized, that would be better, but it's hard for me sometimes to stop and really think and plan videos like that because of just how kind of constantly in motion my life is. Like, so like, for instance, just this day video that you just watched, that's like a regular real day in my life with school pickups, and I'm throwing together soy milk, and I am doing, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And this is not stuff that I do to make the video more interesting. This is like literally, that's just what my life is like. And so trying to plan to do a very specific planned video in the middle of all of that ends up being kind of chaotic. So it's a little easier for me, although it's not necessarily good for you, but it's easier for me to just sort of bring you along in my day, and then I'll talk to you about the stuff that I'm already doing kind of as I'm doing it. And so yeah, then I have to start making a list. Okay, my list: soy milk video, tofu video, you know. Anyway, all right, cool. So anyway, I guess that's all. As always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. And again, I so appreciate you if you're still here. See you guys later. Bye.